Chapter 16, the Autonomic Nervous System and Higher Order Functions. The autonomic nervous system provides motor control to the visceral effectors. It's going to involve 3 different neurons. The visceral motor nuclei is located in the hypothalamus and sends its axons down to zap the autonomic nuclei in the central nervous system. The autonomic nuclei, which is going to be found either in the brainstem or the spinal cord, will then send its axons down and out of the central nervous system to hit the autonomic ganglia in the peripheral nervous system. The autonomic ganglia, which is outside the spinal cord in the PNS, will innervate the visceral effectors. These effectors will be cardiac and smooth muscles, your glands, and your adipose tissue. There are 2 different ganglionic neurons. There's the preganglionic neuron. Now remember, a ganglia implies a cluster of cell bodies outside the central nervous system in the peripheral nervous system. So your preganglionic neuron has cell bodies that are made up of the autonomic nuclei in the central nervous system, and their axons will pass information out of the central nervous to the ganglia in the peripheral nervous system. From the ganglia in the peripheral nervous system extends the ganglionic neurons, also known as postganglionic fibers. These cell bodies are going to make up the autonomic ganglia, and their axons, the postganglionic fibers, are going to pass their information to the visceral effectors. There are 2 subdivisions of the autonomic nervous system. They both control the same organs, but under different states of function or different conditions. The sympathetic nervous system, the first subdivision, controls those organs under stressful conditions and is referred to as the fight or flight response. Parasympathetic nervous system will control those same organs when they're under normal restful conditions, and this is referred to as the rest and digest system. Usually they have opposing effects on the same effectors, but sometimes they actually can work together. And also there are some effectors that are innervated only by one of the subdivisions, such as your blood vessels and sweat glands are controlled only by the sympathetic, and your smooth muscle for the lens of the eye is controlled only by the parasympathetic. The sympathetic division, also referred to as the fight or flight response, is going to prepare your body for heightened somatic activity. It's going to get your skeletal muscles up and running so you can fight or run away. It has short preganglionic fibers and long postganglionic fibers. This means that the autonomic ganglia is located very close to the spinal cord. So when the information, that urgent information, is coming out of the spinal cord, it doesn't have far to go to get the information out there to the peripheral, and this is great for a rapid alert system. It shows extensive divergence. A single preganglionic fiber may innervate dozens of ganglionic neurons in different ganglia. So that simple single sympathetic neuron can control a variety of different visceral effects. There are 3 types of ganglia in the sympathetic nervous system, also referred to as sympathetic ganglia. The first is the sympathetic chain ganglia. There are 2 chains of ganglia located on either side of the vertebral column, and these are going to control the effectors located in the body wall, the thoracic cavity, and the head and the limbs. Then there are 3 collateral ganglia that are located in front of the vertebrae. And these are going to control the effectors in the abdominal pelvic cavity. The third type of ganglia is located in the adrenal medulla. Now there are 2 adrenal medullas. The adrenal gland sits on top of the kidneys, and in the center of it is the medulla. And the medulla is part of the endocrine nervous system. The adrenal medulla is going to release epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are neurotransmitters and also hormones, into the blood to control cells throughout the body. So this goes out in the blood, and now we spread it out in a wide variety of areas. Your adrenal medulla is going to have very long preganglionic fibers, which is unusual for the sympathetic system, and a short postganglionic fiber, because the adrenal gland is so far away from the spinal cord. When the sympathetic nervous system is activated, it's going to increase your alertness. This is done by stimulating the reticular activating system, and this makes you feel like you're on edge. It also is going to decrease sensitivity to pain, elevate your blood pressure, heart, and respiratory rates, elevate your muscle tone, mobilize your energy reserves by breaking down the glycogen quicker and releasing your lipids from the adipose tissue to be used, and it will also have your pupils dilate. All of these things are so that you now have the ability to either fight or to run away and save yourself. Stimulation of the sympathetic preganglionic neurons is going to cause the release of acetylcholine. That's the neurotransmitter that's being released from the preganglionic neurons. This results in an excitatory postsynaptic potential on the ganglionic neuron, and it stimulates the ganglionic neuron to release norepinephrine, okay, to the effector, and this is excitatory. Norepinephrine is an adrenaline-based substance. At the same time, the adrenal medulla will release both epinephrine and norepinephrine, both adrenaline-based, into the blood, and they'll act as a hormone and have a prolonged excitatory effect. Now, your nervous system is good for a quick response, but if the response has to be maintained for a long time, you need that adrenal medulla to get those hormones involved so that you can have that heightened awareness for a longer period. Your parasympathetic division is your rest and digest phase. This is going to be when you are normally not stressed and your body does its normal activities. This is going to stimulate your visceral activities and maintain homeostasis. It has long preganglionic fibers and short postganglionic fibers. That's the opposite of the sympathetic division. Long preganglionic fibers because the system is going to control one organ at a time. It doesn't have to have a high alert system. Everybody doesn't have to be working intensely for some reason. So I can reach out and touch just the kidney and tell, okay, you get to work. Or just the lungs, say you should do this. It does not show divergence as extensively as the sympathetic division. In the parasympathetic division, there are two types of ganglia. There is the terminal ganglia, which is located near the effector organ. Remember, the preganglionic fibers are very long. And then there is the intramural ganglia, which is located right within the effector organ. With the parasympathetic, the vagus nerve, that's cranial nerve number 10, carries about 75% of all of the output for this system. And when parasympathetic system is activated, you will have constriction of your pupils. Now, your pupils change between sympathetic and parasympathetic because if you are in a stress situation, you want to increase the size of the pupil to get as much light in as you can. We're not stressed in parasympathetic, so the pupils will get smaller. We start with secretions of the digestive glands, secretion of hormones for nutrient uptake, activation of the digestive tract. All of that is part of the rest and digest system. Defecation and urination return. Okay. We constrict the respiratory pathways and reduce the heart rate because we don't need as much oxygen in our system, and we don't need the blood flowing as quickly to get that oxygen to the cells to make more ATP. Okay. All of these functions are going to center on relaxation, food processing, and energy absorption. The parasympathetic neurons release only acetylcholine. Both the pre- and post-ganglia release acetylcholine. And the effects are quick to occur, they're localized, and they're short-lived. Reviewing the structure of the neuron setup for the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, they both have preganglionic and postganglionic neurons. The differences are, in the sympathetic, the preganglionic is short, and in the parasympathetic, the preganglionic is long. In the sympathetic, the postganglionic tends to be long, except for if we're talking about the adrenal gland. And in the parasympathetic, the postganglionic is short. As far as neurotransmitters, we have acetylcholine released from both preganglionic neurons as well as the postganglionic neuron of the parasympathetic. The postganglionic neuron of the sympathetic releases only norepinephrine, and the adrenal gland of the sympathetic and the adrenal medulla will release only the epinephrine and norepinephrine directly into the blood. High-order functions include thinking, learning, and also memory. They have three characteristics all in common. They all involve the cerebral cortex. They involve both your conscious and subconscious information processing, and they're not part of your genetic wiring, which would be like a reflex. They can be modified and adjusted over time. Memory is the storage and retrieval of information, and there are different types of memories. There's fact memories and skill memories. Fact memories are going to be specific bits of information that you remember, which is what I'm trying to give you in anatomy and physiology. Skill memories are going to be learned motor behaviors. With repetition, they become incorporated at the subconscious level. Programmed behaviors, such as eating, are stored in the cerebellum. Complex skills are stored in the cerebrum. Different types of memory include short-term and long-term memory. Short-term memory is primary or just working memories. They have rapid recall but not a long retention time, so you can forget them quickly. Long-term memory is memory for more permanent storage, and you're going to have to take your short-term memory and move it into long-term memory. This is called memory consolidation and is carried out by the hippocampus with the help from the amygdala. Now, memory consolidation, your ability to move it from short-term to long-term, depends on four different things. First is your emotional state. If you're surprised or stressed out when something happens, that usually means that memory will be moved immediately into long-term memory. Rehearsal or repetition will move your short-term to long-term memory. Association, the ability to link it to some other long-term memory or information or something you already know. And autonomic memory, which is your subconscious. Long-term memory, which is infinite, can store infinite information, can be stored for a lifetime. There are two types of long-term memory. There's secondary memories, which will fade with time and require considerable effort to recall. This would be something like what you learned in high school. Now you don't really remember it. You have to recall it and study it, and then it will be brought back to the forefront. Tertiary memories seem to be part of your consciousness, like your name. You always remember your name. Amnesia is a loss of memory, and this is due to a disease or trauma to the hippocampus and amygdala. Two types of amnesia: retrograde amnesia, where you lose the memories of your past events, but you do remember what's happening now, okay? And anterograde amnesia, where you're unable to store new memories, but you still have your old memories. So all the new information you forget. Okay? Your long-term memories are going to be broken down into component parts and stored in the appropriate area in the cerebral cortex. Vision, auditory, speech centers all make up a certain memory, and they'll be compartmentalized. Now, in general, memory is stored diffusely within the brain, so it's not like if you get damage in one area, you lose the whole thing. You might lose part of the memory, but you still have some of it stored in other areas. To be conscious means you're alert and attentive and aware of the external stimuli. Unconscious is a range of unawareness. It can be range from simply drowsy to being asleep, to being in a coma, or to be having brain death. Sleep is considered partial unconsciousness from which a person can be aroused with stimuli. There are two different cycles of sleep that you move through numerous times each night. You have deep sleep, which is a relaxed state, heart and respiration are slow, and activities of the cerebral cortex are at a minimum. Then you have REM sleep, called rapid eye movement. This is active dreaming state. The cerebral cortex shows more activity than it does during a conscious state, and you have little reaction to the outside stimuli. Your skeletal muscles are inhibited, which prevents you from physically producing any response to the visions you have during the dream sequence, but your eyes can still move, and they move rapidly. The eye muscles are not inhibited. Sleep is absolutely required for life, but we're not sure why. Okay. It may be used to repair and recharge neural tissue, since protein synthesis does increase during sleep. Arousal is when you wake up. Okay. This is the function of the reticular activating system, the RAS. And this is located in the brain stem with fibers reaching up into the cerebrum. When stimulation of the RAS is going to activate the cerebral cortex. And then you have positive feedback of the RAS, which maintains consciousness after the arrival of the initial stimuli. Over time, your RAS becomes less responsive, and then you start to feel a little sleepy. Your RAS works for about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. So you first, hear loud noise, you're very alert, and then as you get used to the noise, you start to get more drowsy, and then if you hear another big noise, you wake up again. To keep re-stimulating that reticular activating system. Age-related changes in the nervous system. Basically, they all involve reduction. You have a reduction in your brain size, that's the cerebrum, and the weight, a reduction in the number of neurons, a decrease in blood flow to the brain, which will increase your chance of a stroke, a decrease in the number of synapses and the amount of neurotransmitter that's produced, and then you get an accumulation of deposits. Deposits are going to affect processing and memory ability, as well as your motor speed and your sensory sensitivity. There are different types of deposits. Inside the cells, we have two types of deposits. The lipofuscins, which are granular pigments that build up inside the cell, and neurofibrillary tangles. Remember, your neurofibrils are part of the cytoskeleton, and now they get all balled up together and tangle within the cell. Extracellularly, we have plaques, which are connections of those fibrillary proteins, and now they build up and entangle the cell processes, the axons and the dendrites. Both of these deposits, inside and outside the cell, are going to cause problems with your memory abilities.